Morning and welcome to Walks and Wonders. Thought we'd just have a little walk through 2020, reviewing the videos of the last 12 months. I've really enjoyed the walks and making the videos. One of the best things is that you come with me and you accompany me on these walks, either virtually by watching the videos, or I know some locals have gone out and found the tracks and done the walks and found your own walks. So let's have a look back how 2020 started. You may remember I had this mad idea of walking 1,000 miles, and I'll tell you later in the video whether I achieved it. Today is the 1st of January 2020. I don't really do New Year's resolutions, but I have decided today to walk 1,000 miles. Not today, but in 2020. So I'm starting today. If you're not aware, there's a whole movement of people walking 1,000 miles in 2020. Why don't you join us?
Them onto warmth and decorated with leaves. Our friend Anne used to visit us regularly, and she wrote a poem once when she was here, and I'd like to read it to you. Stack the brash and let it lie. Let the creatures make a home. Stack the logs and let them dry. Bring them home. Burn them high. Hear the fox and muntjac cry. Heard the hens and heard the ducks. Drive them home, safe from harm. Let them lie. Watch the marsh tit fly. Hear the wind sigh. Let the light die. We are warm, we are home. Anne was the most inspiring friend. She was absolutely great fun. She was an inspiring mother, wife, teacher, photographer and poet. We miss her dearly. Anne died approximately 4 years ago, but we love to remember her laughter when we're doing this job.
gem of today's video is coming up on our view as I speak. Look at this, isn't this magical? What an absolutely fascinating find. I first discovered this many years ago. I was the friend, well I still am his friend, I was the friend of the vicar here. He's no longer the vicar here, but we are still friends. And I was just having coffee with him one day and he mentioned Crowfield Church. And he says, oh, you'll know about Crowfield Church. And I said, no, I don't. So him and his wife popped me in the back of their car and brought me up here. And it's like it's from another world. It's the only timber-framed church in Suffolk. But I wonder, are there any other timber-framed churches anywhere else in Britain? If you know of any, put a comment in the comments section below. But look at this. So I know it's not normally open every day during the winter, but today's Saturday, so I'm hoping it's supposed to be open at weekends during the winter, but I don't know if it will be. But let's go and see if we can get in, because it's a really beautiful church inside. Hayes and I had a couple of free nights recently and we decided to visit the Cotswolds. It's a part of Britain that we've never visited before, but we've been talking about going for ages. So this was our first venture into the Cotswolds. So this morning we're in Blockley, which is not far from where we're camping. We've come to this church because we watched the Father Brown detective series on TV, and this is the church where it's filmed. And Father Brown is played by Mark Williams, who was also in the Fast Show. For those of you not familiar with the Father Brown TV series, it's a detective story set in the 1950s, and it's a slightly predictable story plot in that the local police inspector tends to arrest the wrong person for murder, and the priest, Father Brown, does his own detective work and exposes the correct culprit. It's quite a dangerous place to live because there are about 3 murders a week, but it's a lovely place to go and visit. It's really weird being here because a lot of the scenes take place by the church gates here. So I've seen this place lots of times on TV, and now we've just come to have a look. We spent most of the morning searching for gas because we've had a problem with the gas, but I'll tell you a little bit about that later. This is weird, having seen something on TV and then you come here. You expect to see Mark Williams dressed as a priest and all the other characters, but obviously it's fiction, so they're not going to be here. But it does mention quite a bit about it in the church. It's just weird to think all the stories we've watched, because I think we've watched nearly all of them now, were filmed here. Right here in this church. Just having a bit of a laugh here because Father Brown's trademark is his brolly, and there is one here in the church porch. He has been here. He's probably around somewhere because his brolly's there. His brolly features in a lot of episodes. Right, I think it's time to go and find somewhere for lunch. Well spotted on the brolly. That's good. I like that. So the snowdrops finally broke through at Danecroft, signalling the beginning of spring. There were so many that Steve and Judith thought they would have a snowdrop drop-in and invite the general public to come and wander around the grounds and see all the snowdrops and even a few crocuses coming up. Unfortunately, Storm Kira and Storm Dennis put paid to that and the event was cancelled.
Storm Kira and the drive is completely blocked. Came down yesterday and Steve's just checking out how we're going to deal with it, but it's probably going to be later because it's still blowing a gale.
Thank you. What are you doing? Zooming on the cup of tea?
Yes, it's essential.
Thank you.
Cheers, and really well done.
Cheers.
Just got to clear up a bit, and we're free.
Oh yeah, when you get around the far side of the wall. Well, this is the bird boxes. This is bird boxes. This is a barn owl. A barn owl box.
Right. Okay.
Right, it's quite deep because the idea is what sort of birds do they have, David? How many do they have? The chicks?
They can have up to 6.
6.
Usually 3 or 4, but
Yeah.
if there's it's all food supply, if there's plenty of voles and things, they'll hatch off normal.
Right,
And
yeah.
is this a tried and tested design sort of thing? Or?
It is.
It's a
It is.
it's a hybrid of 1 or 2 other designs, so they're all very similar, as long as they've got the basic
Yeah.
components.
Yeah, I got the design off the owl trust, whatever it's called. Yeah, but the thing is, it had a flat roof, which I didn't like.
Oh right. Okay.
Right, so I made this bolts on it to make it look a bit more like a chalet.
Yeah. But it's obviously owls are looking for.
Exactly.
For sort of cleaning and.
And this is just a little exercise thing that
Right.
comes
Okay.
off, but that's what the screws on. Then that jobby there
That's for sort of
is for
cleaning.
generally cleaning. If you want to ring the owlets, then you can.
Right.
So that's the theory. So that is the barn owl box.
Open front of those boxes, which we're hoping we're going to attract a spotted flycatcher.
Okay.
Last year there were spotted flycatchers about this area. Keith had in his garden, and we had in our garden. And the spotted flycatcher looks a nice open box where you can see out
Right.
and look round. So we've put about 5 or 6 of them
Yeah,
in this area.
yeah,
We're hoping we might attract a pair.
yeah. That's obviously our woodland, and this
Yeah.
bit here is the museum
right.
land, which is really nice and open. Which is, am I right, David, in saying it's ideal for
Yes.
barn owl territory?
Rough grassland with the voles and
Yeah.
nice.
So that's why we've decided to put it there. So I've just sort of trimmed bits and bobs off the tree, so the barn owl has got a lovely clear flight.
Yeah.
We're just going to hang on the low one. It's going to sit on there, and hopefully we'll be having barn owls.
So we're just going to go and do another bird box, say we. And David and Steve are going to fix the second bird box.
The tawny owl box.
Right.
And Judith asked the question, why this shape? It sort of replicates a hole in a hollow tree. So you're
Right.
thinking of a tree with a big hollow cavity,
Right.
and they like to get right down the bottom.
Right.
The tawny owl will only have sort of two chicks at the most, like Steve did last year.
Okay.
As you enter Needham Market from the west, you cross an almost unnoticed bridge, known as Badley Bridge on maps, but to locals the bridge has a different name, Chain Bridge. This is because between 1665 and 1666 a chain was placed across the road here at this bridge to prevent people from entering and leaving Needham Market. People from neighbouring Stowmarket would leave food near the chain, and then later in the day the people of Needham Market would take the food and leave money in a bowl of vinegar. At the opposite end of town, Chain House Road commemorates the chain that was at that end of town. And also on the High Street, number 1 the High Street, is called Chain House. Hidden away near the railway line is an older mortuary building. Although it was built in 1936, maybe this is the site of a previous mortuary during the plague times. In the centre of Needham Market is a narrow turn-off to a street called the Causeway. But back in 1600, this route was known as the Corpse Way, and it was the way that corpses were carried out of Needham Market to Barking Church. At that time, Needham Market was part of the parish of Barking, and all the burials were done at Barking Church. Today I'm going to walk the Causeway, or the old Corpse Way, all the way to Barking Church.
So there is actually a chain across this bridleway to stop people driving down it, I guess. But it is quite reminiscent of how the road was chained off in Needham Market back in the days of the plague. Then we heard the news that on the 16th of March 2020, England went into full lockdown because of the pandemic, along with most of the rest of the UK. Life changed. We had to queue to get in supermarkets. We had to stay at home, work from home, and all the rest of it. As the gym and other exercise places were all closed, I got my friend Bob Halls to take me for a workout on a walk from Stowmarket and over to Badley.
We're now leaving the estate and we're going to go through this lovely little corridor here and then head up towards Coombs Wood. Hopefully it's quite steep, so if Don's alright at the end of it, then we'll complete the rest of the walk. Off we go! Otherwise we'll be phoning an ambulance. Okay, we've just completed the warm-up and we're now going to enter Coombs Wood, a lovely, beautiful area, and we'll just go through there at a nice easy pace, and then when we come out we'll really go for it and we'll see if we can get Don out of breath.
I'm already out of breath, Bob. In August, local historian Steve Williams did a tour of the old Stowmarket Cemetery for a handful of people, and he invited me along to film his talk.
50 years surgeon in this town. Died January 9th, 1883 in his 79th year. Right, he was a surgeon, and he was the one who lived in the marketplace. You know where the phone shop is? Yeah. That was his surgery, and he lived in the place next door, which is now the Bucks Estate Agents. He lived in the house, and the surgery was where the phone shop was, right? He, in old documents, or referred to, Harry Double especially referred to him, as the town's Adonis. Now, he was described as being incredibly handsome, very pale skin and dark hair, and, you know, sort of imposing stature, I suppose, and all the rest of it. He was well regarded. He wasn't just a surgeon, he was also the registrar of births, marriages and deaths as well. So he was well connected in the town and well known in the town, and there is an etching of the marketplace with a figure in a top hat and a black thing riding across on a very sort of stately looking horse, and everybody assumes that is him. But the unusual thing with Spencer Freeman, you don't normally get your name mentioned on other people's headstones. So he's unique in respect to the fact that just here, and I'll read it to you, and you'll have to take my word for it. In memory of Mary Chinnery, who departed this life the 4th day of February 1877, aged 78, 43 years the faithful servant of Spencer Freeman, surgeon of this town. So even in death, they want to be known to have been associated with Mr. Freeman. So that's quite unique. Even more unique is this chap here. And you'll have to believe me, underneath all that, erected to the memory of Edward Leathers, who died April 6, 1858, aged just 33 years. He was for 11 years confidential and dispensing assistant to Spencer Freeman, surgeon of this town. When we found that, like I say, and again, like I said, lettering was expensive, but they wanted to be association. That's like having a pop star that you want to be association, or a film star or something like that, you know. See.
Steve then had an idea that we could retrace the route of his old school cross-country run, and he would give me some historical facts and some other anecdotes as we retrace the route.
Well, before that was the basket factory, that was a maltings.
Right, so I thought the building, well, I don't know if that's just styled on the...
Well, they've kept the original layout, even after that was made into sort of accommodation. And but my niece sort of did a bit of research for a school project or something about the old Maltons in the town, and that had been made into a Maltons, and that was quite an unusual floor layout apparently, even when that's a Maltons. But prior to that, there was a huge windmill stood on the end.
Right, there's a windmill there.
There was a huge windmill stood there, and that was sort of like Pfizer's mill. And I've got a little newspaper article about that. In 1884, a destructive fire Tuesday evening, Mrs. Pfizer's flour mill was totally destroyed by fire. The mill containing 4 pairs of stone and was situated a short distance from the town on the Fimber Road. In 1826, during a memorable storm, the top was blown off and afterwards repaired. And that goes on quite a lot, sort of, you know, about people repairing it, and then they got it up and running again, and that was steam powered, and then they also had the mill wheels and everything else. So that's got quite an interesting history. And in the Hollingsworth book, the view in one of Hollingsworth's pictures, that's Foyson's Mill, which has got a very prominent position. But if you look at the parish church in the general direction, so the tower's in the west, and this is all looking westwards, obviously, so that's up here.
That's the mill, oh right, wow. Towards the completion of this walk, Steve and I talked about the possibility of future videos where he could be the historical tour guide. Sadly, what seemed like just a few weeks later, Steve was admitted to hospital and unfortunately passed away, to the surprise and shock of everyone in the town. He was sometimes known as Mr. Stowmarket because he knew all the history of the town, and although the pandemic rules prevented a mass gathering at his funeral, the town nevertheless did turn out to say farewell to one of their most loved residents.
Families that would be associated with the death on the last day of the Somme, Battle of the Somme. Bearing in mind it started 1st of July, never finished until the 13th of November. The village of Thiepval should have been taken on the day, the 13th. That wasn't taken until about early September by the 18th Division, which was the Eastern Division. That wasn't taken. Eastern Division, the 18th Division, was a strike division really. And they took their objectives, and it was under the control of a Major General Ivan Maxey, ex-Guards officer. The way they took the objective was the fact that he dug trenches from the British trench, Russian saps they called them, dug out the trenches going from our trench to the German lines, and then when the whistle blew at 7:30 on the 1st of July 1916, they just came up halfway across and they were in the trenches, the German trenches, before the Germans could come out and get the machine guns done. Some of these people you see, you know, they'd never been out their village, and suddenly there's, you know, they've got the harvest in and things like that, and they think, oh, there's a war in France. They've never been out to Ipswich, let alone anywhere else, you know. Go over to France, different country, new suit of clothes, it'll be over by Christmas, we'll be back. You know, we've got to look forward to the spring harvest then, or planting. You know, you're hedging and ditching, otherwise you might be laid off, and a whole sack across your shoulders to keep the damp out. And to say suddenly a big adventure, getting money, 3 square meals a day, new suit of clothes, you know, and it's all going to be over by Christmas, we'll be back. What an adventure. Where do I sign on, you know? God dear, hold me back. So the poor little old devils, off they went, and that was it. It's such a shame. I mean, so naive. I mean, what do they have to look forward to? You know, he's coming into winter and everything, especially around this area, you know, rural area. You know, he's going to be lucky if you're going to be kept on by the farmer, you know, otherwise it's sort of you know, crusty bread and cold water, that was it, you know. Just, oh dear, a big adventure, and off they go, money in their pocket, first time ever. Half of them never came back. Those that came back were sort of absolutely, must have been disturbed, mustn't they, what they saw, what they witnessed.
thanks for joining me on this walk through 2020, especially those of you who've joined the ranks of subscribers on this channel during 2020 and all the ones that subscribed before too. Really appreciate you hitting that red subscribe button. And so to the big question, did I manage to walk 1,000 miles in 2020, which I set as a target earlier in the year? Well, let's have a look at the scores on the doors. So I don't want to give the the dog ate my homework speech, but in my defence, although I did this in 2018 and managed 1,000 miles, I think the two things that came against it this year, one was not mental illness, but just the lockdown did sort of flatten me a bit mentally at certain points in the year. Just didn't want to do anything. Really had to push myself to get out. That was one thing. Also, I've had this dodgy left knee, which at the moment is not feeling too bad. But the main thing is I walked all them miles, and that's probably more miles than I would have walked had I not set myself the challenge. So I think it's a win-win. Good for your health and all that. So thanks for watching today, and I'll see you in the new year and in the next video. Bye.